What is going on, guys? In today's video, I will show you the new best Thorns warrior build in Path of Exile 2 0.3 update. This build is super unique because instead of avoiding damage, we are actually embracing it. As the more damage we receive, the faster the enemies will melt. The core of this setup revolves around a unique helmet called the Crown of the Pale King. Without it, the entire concept doesn't work, because this helmet takes every incoming hit and converts it into the Thorns damage, while also triggering effects like the Barbs and the Quill Burst. These not only deal additional retaliation damage, but also give the build that satisfying visual identity. So spikes are erupting, bursts of the barbs are flying out, and enemies are endlessly being punished for trying to hurt you. If you are playing in SSF, then you're going to want to hold off until you find this helmet, but in the trade leagues, it's your absolute top priority. Then another key piece that boosts this build is the Warbringer's Anvil's Fate mechanic. Traditionally, one of the biggest hurdles for the tanky builds is the clanky downtime when the armor breaks, by leaving you exposed. But with the Anvil's Fate, that entire friction point is removed, so suddenly, maintaining stacks of the scavenge plating is effortless. Your defenses will never collapse, and your retaliation damage just keeps working 24/7. And remember, if you wanna track this build, look up the best items, the skill trees, and power building, then check my link in the description. If you ever played Path of Exile 2 for long enough, then you know that the grind for currency can feel endless. And that's where today's sponsor comes in. KaidGames is a trusted platform used by over 150,000 gamers worldwide. They offer pro player support in more than top 25 games, including PoE 2. No matter if you need a faster start, you want to help with the tough content, or just want currency delivered safely and quickly, then KaidGames has you covered. What I really like is how smooth the whole process is, from click to the gameplay in minutes, clear and fast chats with their team, plus if an order is not fulfilled, you get an instant refund. I've tried it myself, and honestly, it just makes the game more fun. So if you wanna skip the grind and enjoy PoE 2 your way, then click my link in the description to check out KaidGames and use my code KAID for extra 10% off. So let's take a look at our skill gems. At the center we got the Thorn skin, and we're using both the Thorn skin 1 and the Thorn skin 2, depending on how much spirit you have available. You need to think of the Thorn skin as your retaliation aura. It needs to be up at all times, and your job is to manage the spirit so you can keep it active consistently. If you invested into additional spirit rolls on your gear, then you can stack multiple Thorn skins together, which will feel amazing because you're essentially wrapping yourself in a double coat of spikes. The more uptime, the more damage monsters will deal to themselves by just hitting you. For endurance and survivability, we rely heavily on the magma barrier, which interacts with the charge regulation to keep endurance charges flowing. And while we are speaking about the endurance charges, they're huge here, because they scale your mitigation and by extension your Thorns damage. To complement this, Resonating Shield is an occasional button press that might not feel that flashy, but it's deceptively strong. Hitting it regularly while mapping will keep your endurance charges topped off and make you feel unstoppable. Defensively, your setup revolves around the scavenge plating, magma barrier, and resonating shield, which are all linked with supports that extend duration, reduce cooldowns, or even boost armor scaling. And this is where you see how your defense literally becomes offense. The longer your plating and the barriers stay active, the more enemies beat themselves to death by trying to get through. And then on the offensive side, you're not relying solely on retaliation. Skills like the Rapid Assault and the Rake are slotted in to give us active melee presence. These aren't your main damage dealers, but they will keep the pressure up and ensure that the enemies are constantly pulled in your retaliation field. And lastly, for utility skills, we got the Fortifying Cry, which not only keeps you alive but directly scales Thorn, because increased mitigation will equal the stronger retaliation. With a cooldown recovery linked, you can keep this almost permanently. Then Disengage is your emergency tool. It's a quick reposition button that doesn't get used often, but it feels OP in those moments where you need to dodge a telegraphed boss slam. Then now let's take a look at the passive tree. The first cornerstone is the Iron Reflexes, and it's essential. By converting evasion into armor, it takes stats that normally would not scale retaliation and transforms them into fuel for your Thorns. When you're stacking evasion on the rings, amulets, and the gauntlet, the Iron Reflexes will take all of that and skyrocket your armor. This result is not just durability, but also raw damage output, since our retaliation values are based on how much armor you can stack. From there we go into the three main priorities. The first one is the raw defense. You're picking up clusters for the maximum life. armor scaling and endurance charge generation. These nodes give you the staying power to survive constant hits, which is the lifeblood of a Thorns build. If you are not tanky enough to stay in the thick of a combat, then your retaliation never gets the chance to work. Then the second focus is on retaliation scaling itself. The tree will include several passives that boost reflect damage, increase the effect of Thorns, and synergize with the physical scaling. Unlike crit focus builds that chase multipliers, this one leans into the consistency. Every hit you take will become guaranteed damage output, and that output will multiply into packs where the monsters swing rapidly. And then finally, our last focus is on utility and sustain. Regeneration nodes, block recovery, and the cooldown efficiency are all picked along the way. These will give you fluidity to keep your Warcry's barriers and the Thorn skins active without the downtime. It means that you're never caught waiting for a cooldown to cycle, or left exposed without your defenses. Then next we have our Ascendancy, and the first pick is the Anvil's Weight, and it is the most important one. It removes the friction of armor breaking and makes the scavenge plating effortless to maintain. The moment that you take this, you feel the build flow more naturally, and you will notice how much smoother the combat becomes. Next you move into the Renleash training, which reinforces your endurance engine and adds another layer of survivability that directly synergizes with your retaliation mechanics. Then third step is the Turtle Charm, which is a defining node that emphasizes your role as a living wall. It's pure survivability, but that's exactly what you want in a build, where surviving equals more damage. And finally, we round this out with the Jade Heritage, which is a node that ties everything together with the sustain and the scaling, by giving you longevity and consistency to comfortably handle the endgame bosses. Then next, moving over to the Atlas passive tree. And the psychology here is all about stacking consistency and value rather than gambling on random mechanics. The central spine of the tree will connect into notables like the Essence, Strongbox's Harvest, Delirium, and the bossing nodes. On the left side, we invest into the Harvest and Essence, which ensures that you always have access to reliable crafting bases and deterministic upgrades. Then on the right side, the chunk boxes combined with the Legion or Expeditions will crank up density and the loot, which will give us explosive maps packed with the monsters that are perfect for retaliation build. And then at the top, the bossing notables like the Maven, Invocation, and the Conquerors will influence guarantee steady access to pinnacle fights, so you're always progressing through the highest tier content. The most important thing about the setup is avoiding overextension, so rather than just spending points everywhere, we want to cluster around synergies that feed into each other. Next up is the gear, and the first rule of gearing is to upgrade your Thorns gear at the start of every level bracket. The Thorns damage doubles at every stage, and if you neglect upgrades, then you will feel yourself falling behind quickly, so stay on top of it, and your damage will always feel smooth. The best in slot shield is the China Box Pillar. This thing takes your retaliation damage to ridiculous heights, especially when paired with a Scavenge plating. If you can get a corrupted version with the Thorns damage, then that's the best in slot. Then your spear does not need to deal DPS directly. Instead, look for modifiers that boost Thorns indirectly. So things like gain percentage of damage as extra damage, and sockets for the Sakaval's Rune of the Sky. Then for boots, the Briar Patch is your target, ideally with 2 sockets and a corruption for the high movement speed. Then the body armor should be in a high armor base, with maximum life and resistances. You can go for spirit rolls if you want, but remember that usually it will cost you a maximum life roll, so the trade-off is up to you. Then for amulet, the solar amulet is best in slot. You want one with another spirit roll, maximum life, percentage increased maximum life, and capped resistances. Then our belt should carry a high physical Thorns roll, a high armor base, maximum life and resistances. Then on gloves and rings you wanna fill it with the life, capped resistances, and ideally evasion to scale armor through the armor reflexes. And then anoint is our last thing. If you are on a budget, then go with defensive reflexes for a cheap black anoint. But if you got more to invest, then the Molten Being is a great mix of offense and defense. And then finally, for pure damage, the anoint called Cook will bring extra punch. And now finally, let's see how to actually play this build. The rotation is simple, smooth and incredibly satisfying. You wanna keep the Thorn skin active at all times, because that's your bread and butter and you never want to be caught without it. You'll want to cycle Magma Barrier and the Resonating Shield to keep endurance charges flowing, and then you can drop the Scavenge plating whenever it's ready, because it multiplies your retaliation damage by a huge amount. Then for offense, you weave in Rapid Assaults and the Rake to keep enemies engaged. They're not going to be the star of the show, but they will keep the pressure on the packs and bosses, while your Thorns do the real work. Then use Fortifying Cry on the cooldown for survivability and retaliation scaling. and keep disengage in your back pocket for emergencies. When you're mapping, the playstyle is almost brainless in the best way, so you charge into the backs, your Thorn skins will trigger, enemies will slam into you, and they will instantly explode from their own damage. In the dense content like Delirium or Legion, it feels incredible, because the more enemies swarm you, the faster the screen clears. And then when it comes to bosses, it's about patience. You're not trying to burst them down in seconds. Instead, you stay alive to keep your defensive layers rolling, and let the bosses bleed themselves dry. With the Crown of the Pale King and the Scavenge Plating scaling, they will fall shockingly fast, and you will feel completely godlike the entire time.